Welcome. Today, we're diving deep into the crisis unfolding in Iran. It's one of the most serious challenges the country's leadership has faced in decades, and it's got the whole world watching.
And right off the bat, you can see the stakes couldn't be higher. This is a direct warning from the US president, and it really sets the stage for a super tense international standoff. This isn't just a domestic issue anymore, it's a global flashpoint.
Okay, so let's get into what actually triggered that warning. It all comes down to the fate of protesters who have been sentenced to death by the Iranian government.
To really understand this, we need to put a human face on it. This is 26-year-old Irfan Soltani. His family told the BBC he was detained just last week, and in a matter of days, he was facing a death sentence. His story really brings this massive crisis down to a personal level.
You know, what's really setting off alarm bells here is the speed of it all. A human rights group said they'd never seen a case move this fast. And that suggests this isn't really about justice. It's a tactic. It's a very deliberate move to spread fear and to try and shut down dissent across the entire country. So, to really wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this crackdown, we have to look at the numbers. And these are figures that are just starting to leak out, even with an almost total information blackout. First, let's talk about the death toll. One human rights group is reporting that over 2,400 protesters have been killed. That number is just staggering, and it includes at least 12 children. And it doesn't stop with the fatalities. The number of arrests is just massive. We're talking about over 18,000 people reportedly detained. This shows you this isn't some small, localized incident. This is a full-blown nationwide crackdown. But behind those numbers is a reality that is just grim. We have eyewitness accounts, like this one from an activist in Tehran, painting a horrifying picture. Families having to search through actual piles of bodies to find their loved ones. It really suggests that the official numbers don't even begin to capture the true level of violence. And you can see the ripple effect in the healthcare system, which is basically collapsing under the pressure. A doctor in Tehran actually described hospitals as being like a war zone. They're totally overwhelmed with casualties and running out of blood and even basic supplies. It's just more evidence of how many people are being hurt. So how in the world did it get to this point? I mean, this movement has become one of the biggest challenges to Iran's establishment since the 1979 revolution. Let's backtrack a little and see how it all started. It actually kicked off with economic frustration, something a lot of people can relate to. People were angry about the currency collapsing and the cost of living just skyrocketing. But that anger, it morphed, and it morphed fast, into widespread calls for fundamental political change. It spread like wildfire to 180 cities in every single province before the government met it with a deadly response. And if you want to know what's really on people's minds, all you have to do is listen to the chants in the streets. We've seen verified videos of protesters yelling "Death to the dictator," which is a direct shot at the supreme leader. They're even bringing up the name of the monarch who was overthrown back in 1979. That tells you just how deep the disillusionment with the current system runs. Okay, so that's what's happening on the ground. But what's the official story? How is the Iranian government actually framing all of this in trying to justify its actions? Well, the official narrative is, to put it mildly, a world away from what international observers are seeing. Iranian officials are out there claiming that terrorists are responsible for the deaths. But the UN human rights chief calls that framing unacceptable, basically a flimsy excuse to justify violence against their own citizens. Legally speaking, the government is pulling out a very powerful weapon. Prosecutors are charging protesters with enmity against God. It's a national security offense, and it carries the death penalty. And the head of the judiciary has made it crystal clear, vowing that anyone involved will be dealt with seriously and severely. Now, a huge part of the government's strategy here is to control the narrative by controlling information. At the time of these reports, the internet had been shut down for over 120 hours. Think about that. It's like a digital curtain has been dropped, making it incredibly difficult for anyone to verify what's really going on inside the country. And this domestic crisis is now spilling onto the world stage in a big way. As the world watches, the United States in particular is really starting to ramp up the pressure. So the US response has a few different parts. You've got these sweeping economic threats, like 25% tariffs on any country that dares to trade with Iran. Then you have diplomatic isolation, and some really strong rhetoric supporting the protesters, even co-opting their slogan, "Make Iran Great Again." So how does Tehran see all this? Well, they see it as a provocation, plain and simple. The government has come out and publicly accused the U.S. of trying to create an excuse for military intervention. They're essentially framing any American support for the protesters as a hostile act.
And that's where we are now. You've got information being totally suppressed inside the country, and at the same time, international tensions are boiling over. It leaves us with this huge, critical question that just hangs in the air. In this environment of control and escalating threats, how can the world ever know the full, true story of what's happening to the people of Iran?